Hazel Ato Forson, MP for Ejumakun Inyan Esiam. Good afternoon to you, sir, and thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon.
Yes. So the NDC side... Sorry, sir?
I said thanks for having me.
Yes, our pleasure. The NDC side in Parliament described soon after the budget statement was read what has been very critical of the entire budget, saying that it will make Ghanaians worse off. What reasons are you given for this position?
Thank you very much. I think our position is very clear. One, it emanates from the fact that we strongly believe that this isn't the time to impose certain taxes on the people of Ghana. Reason is simple. Yes, we acknowledge that indeed the COVID-19 has had some impact on the Ghanaian economy. The impact is largely on private sector and most particularly the small, medium enterprises. In fact, at the governmental level, the impact is not as severe as some countries have done. So if you look at the macro growth, particularly the GDP growth, you can see that indeed the impact is not that severe on the government side. However, the very side that had had some difficulties, this administration seems to be very insensitive and decided to tax them. That is why we believe that the kind of budget that we have is nothing but a better one. A better in the sense that it fails to recognize the hardships that the people are going through and has now decided to compound it by imposing the number of taxes. I think 6 or 7 taxes. Let me start with. The government in the budget statement announced that they are going to introduce a good number of taxes. One of the taxes had to do with the increase of petroleum products, particularly on diesel and petrol. And so they said they are going to introduce a particular tax called the Delta Fund. And that Delta Fund, what basically it seeks to do is that it is going to, one, introduce a 20 peso increase on petrol and diesel. And then also apart from that, they are going to introduce a tax on sanitation that we have christened in Bola tax, a tax that will also increase the fuel price by additional 10%. So overall, 10 pesos. Overall, we have seen 2 tax policies that seeks to introduce the cost of fuel, particularly petrol and diesel, by 30 pesos. That represents some significant increase in the export price of fuel that the ordinary Ghanaian will be paying. I mean, you agree with me that fuel is something that when you increase, it affects almost everything. It affects the private sector most, particularly the small, medium enterprises. That is already struggling. So we think that that is not the way to go. Then apart from that, what even strikes me most is the introduction of additional VAT on the back of COVID. And they said that, look, we are introducing a COVID levy that will mean that we are going to increase VAT by 1%. And then also the VAT flat rate that is pegged at 3% will be increased to 4%. You know, for me, VAT flat rate is paid by people in the small, medium enterprises. And you agree with me, as I said earlier, that that is the very core of where the COVID-19 pandemic has hit. And so coming out to say that you are going to increase the taxes on the back of that is a major concern. And that's why we said that this budget, once again, is insensitive. The VAT 1% coupled with the increase in the 3% flat rate to 4% will mean that prices of goods and services are going to go up, and it's going to affect households. And then also, as long as the calculation is concerned, it's going to affect even firms. So we have reservations on the back of that. Major reservations. And then again, we heard them say that they are going to also introduce to Parliament a policy that will seek to increase a tax or introduce a tax of 5% on profit for financial sectors, particularly the banks. You see, our difficulty here is simple. One, the banks are already paying national fiscal stabilization levy, which is 5%, and the government decided to extend it to 2024. So 5% of national fiscal stabilization levy they will also be paying 25% corporate tax. That will make it 30%. And now they're introducing additional 5% tax on the back of banking sector pay. So that will make it 35%. Now, investors are not at the Christmas anyway. They are looking at certain bottom line in terms of profit. And so if you are to increase your taxes above certain limits, clearly, we are optimistic that the banks are going to pass on this cost to the ordinary consumer. And again, that is going to increase the cost of doing business. That is going to affect how investors' decisions are being made. So as we speak, some of these taxes currently that the government is considering to be in the financial sector may distort the level of investment at the financial sector. And I believe that, as I said earlier, that this may introduce some deadweight cost, and it can be that it will not be very beneficial to the economy. So we've asked the government to think about it, coupled with the fact that around this time, we know that around this time, the COVID-19 pandemic has affected particularly the private sector. The private sector they have certainly gone for loan from these very banks that we are talking about. These banks expect this very financial, private sector that is struggling to service the debt. We believe that the way the pandemic is going, if care is not taken, we will see some non-performing loans coming from the private sector. And if that is going to be the case, the banks may take a hit. The very banks that are going to take the hit, government, instead of coming in to assist in the situation, has decided to increase taxes on them. So I have not seen one single budget statement that has so much tax policies than the one we are saying. And to conclude on the tax policy, we've all been complaining that betting, gambling, is something that is affecting our youth so much. And we've called on our government to act. Sadly, instead of government deciding to act on it, possibly coming out with a measure to possibly find a way that to abolish it, not to abolish it, let me use another word, maybe to restrict gambling in the country. Government in the budget statements has indicated that it's an opportunity for them to tax them. The government is going to support it by taxing the system, which we believe that it is not the way to go. So much taxes in this budget statement that we believe will not be the one to support the forward march of this economy.
Very well. What do you make of the tax reliefs added by government? For instance, the tax rebate of 30% on income tax, suspension of quarterly installment payments for vehicle income tax. Will then this be seen as a sort of a balance or to cushion the burden that the other taxes will bring?
I disagree. I disagree that this is going to be any manageable or very sector that they intend to give them 30% capital. The target is on the hospitality industries. They are targeting hotels, restaurants, the likes of ticketing companies, travel and tours and all of that. These travel and tours are not making profit. The hotels are crying. In fact, they are not making profit. Mm-hmm. So if they are not making profit, what do you have to tax? In fact, 30% of zero is zero. 30% of nothing is nothing. So they've given nothing to the industry, as long as I'm concerned. They have targeted the very sector that has been hit so much by the pandemic to the extent that they are not making making profit. And so if you decide to cancel 30% of the profit that you think they will make, you've done nothing. In fact, they are not making profit. They are writing losses anyway. So the fiscal incentives that you are giving to them is moot. Then
well
also,
noted, Mr. Forson. This will be debated in Parliament. Given the minority or the NDC side's position, what will you do?
Even before I come to our position, let me raise another key point. On the back of the very tax that you talked about for the trotro drivers that they are going to more or less suspend for 2 quarters, I think again it's not significant. It's not significant because you have increased taxes on the back of petroleum product going to go up. So you are taking from them in one angle. And then also, you have also said that you are going to increase road tolls. Yeah. So all of these are additional costs that the trotro driver or the taxi driver is going to pay. At the same time, you are saying you are giving them some form of tax rebate. If you are to put the two together, net effect, government is taking from them more than what government is giving to them. So they have not done anything. And then on the back of the final, the question that you asked, our position. We have serious positions. We have few concerns in the budget statement. We have once again seen that the administration has misreported on the back of fiscal deficit. We've seen so many things in the budget statement that from tomorrow we will lay bare and we request the government to change them. Failure to change, we will not be in a position to support.
We're grateful for your time. That's